You're listening to
such a short amount of time to do this.
a Mamamia podcast.
What happens when you build a brand around resilience? You write a book about finding happiness and gratitude through empathy, and then you realise you're not okay.
The second I'd said it, I sort of covered my mouth like, oh my gosh, this is not good for my brand. But then the second I said it, I have to tell you, I felt so much better. And that was when I went in and told Penny, my wife, who you've interviewed before, obviously, and just said, I'm not good.
In 2021, as we headed back into yet another lockdown across the majority of the country, and so many of us were struggling in so many ways, I messaged Hugh van Cuylenberg from the Resilience Project and invited him onto this very podcast. Help, I said to him via DM. We are all losing it. We need you to tell us how to feel better and stronger at a time when we're feeling really, really bleak. No pressure here. That episode was one of our most downloaded last year, and it was such a great conversation. Hugh's book about resilience, which came out around the same time, was a bestseller, and his advice, both on the show and in his book and in the talks that he gives, has helped so many people. And then last year, he fell apart. From Mamamia, you're listening to No Filter, a podcast where people from all walks of life tell their stories very candidly and aren't afraid to be vulnerable. My name is Mia Friedman, and today I'm speaking once again with Hugh van Cuylenberg. He's got a new book and he's got a new story, because in this episode, Hugh unpacks what he's learned about resilience since he fell in a bit of a heap. How did he get back up again? And why he will never be the same, in a good way. When was the first moment that it occurred to you that you weren't okay?
I had warning signs, but I didn't really pay attention to them. So I noticed halfway through last year, I was getting angry at my kids and I was getting angry at Penny, and I've never got angry at anyone in my entire life. And all of a sudden I was getting really angry and really short and really snappy at the people I love, like that I love most in the world. And there was a night where my 2-year-old daughter, Elsie, she was so sick. Like she couldn't breathe properly, and she's like blocked nose and sore throat. It wasn't COVID, it sounds like it. And I was getting cross at her. Like I was going, just go to sleep. This is ridiculous. And she's like putting her arms out from the cot trying to hug me. It actually makes me emotional even just saying that, even remembering this. But I just picked her up and said, lie down. And I lay her down. I was trying to like push her down. She's trying to get up. She just wanted to hug me. But back then, she was a year old. She's hanging onto the cot asking for a hug, and I kept pushing her back down. The next day, I was at work on minimal sleep, just thinking, I'm not happy with that. I'm not happy with myself at the moment. Like, that is awful. Like, my 1-year-old is so sick, and I'm getting angry at her. And I thought, that's very strange for someone who's never been angry. It must be sleep deprivation. But then when I did, it was Dave Hughes on Dave Hughes' drive show in Sydney. He did an interview, and I had an hour and a half sleep because of Elsie and the kids just being sick. And at the end of the interview, he said, are you okay? And I shocked myself more than anyone, but I said, I'm totally and utterly broken, which was true. I was just shattered. And I'd been denying that because I was doing interview after interview, telling people how to cope in a pandemic, which is ridiculous, right? I've never been through this before. So why I thought I could be an expert on it. The second I'd said it, I sort of covered my mouth like, oh my gosh, this is not good for my brand. But then the second I said it, I have to tell you, I felt so much better. And that was when I went in and told Penny, my wife, who you've interviewed before, obviously, and just said, I'm not good. This is the first time in my life I reckon I'm not good. I've never not been good before. This is it. And I don't know if this is an issue because everyone keeps calling me saying, can you please come and speak to us about how we should be coping right now? But then I thought, no, do you know what? This is a big part of coping, is first of all admitting when you're not okay. So long answer to your question, Mary, but that's when I first realised I wasn't coping.
Did Hughesy ask you because he could sense something in your voice? Like, did he know you, or was it just one of those questions that we were all asking each other through lockdown, and through the last 2 years?
So I've never met him before. We've never met, and he doesn't know me at all. I don't think he sensed anything, but he was in Sydney and his family are in Melbourne. And so I think he was hearing every day how hard it was. So I think that might have prompted the question, I think.
And how did he react when you said that?
It was the end of the interview. I was here. No, thanks for joining us.
And we're going to go.
It was like okay.
Just a throwaway, yeah.
I think they actually laughed because I think they maybe thought I was joking. I think they thought I was joking. And I was like, I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing at this. I'm broken. I'm shattered right now.
And at what point was this? So was it like partway through this second massive lockdown or third or fourth or whatever it is in Melbourne, but, you know, the big one that happened?
I was going to say, I can't remember the date, but I remember it was a cold and miserable day. But that doesn't narrow it down at all in Melbourne. It's pretty much every day we've had for the last year here. It was June, July, and I think it was last year. Honestly, it's been such a blur. You're probably the same. I just feel like...
Yeah, time is really hard to get a sense of, isn't it?
I think I'm still processing what the hell just happened. And
it's still happening.
And it's still happening. I mean, gosh, I saw the case numbers today. I've been ignoring the case numbers from, saw them and went, no, I can't deal with this right now, and just turned the page really quickly. I think it was mid last year.
Okay, so this is actually quite early on. This is 6 months into, we're talking in December, so 6 months into the almost 2 years that we've had.
Yes, yeah.
And what did Penny do, your wife, when you said that?
Gave me a really big hug. Initial response was good, but I think she felt a bit like, oh, hang on, if you're not okay, then how am I meant to be going, or how are the rest of us meant to be going? So her response is a bit what I dreaded, but she only needed, honestly, 5 or 10 minutes to process it, and then she was amazing. So she was very, okay, so what do I need to do? She went into problem-solving mode straight away, which what I've discovered in the last sort of 12 months is not what we're meant to do. When someone comes to us and they're not good and they tell us, the first thing we do is validate them. And I didn't know that at the time when Penny was saying, well, actually, this is a really good question, Mary, because there's something in this for everyone. And I'm not having a go at Penny here because I'm sure I've done the same thing to her. We all do this. But she said, okay, so I need to spend more time with the kids so you can just get more time to yourself. We need to make sure you can exercise every day. And it didn't make me feel better. In fact, it made me feel more stressed. It didn't make me feel any better at all. And I was a bit annoyed by it and I didn't know why. And then I spoke to a pediatrician a little while later on our podcast, actually, and he said, when a child, and then he said, or anyone for this matter, comes to you with a problem or an issue or something they're struggling with, the very first thing you have to do is you have to validate them. You have to say, I understand why you feel like that. That makes sense. Of course you feel like that. I know what that feels like. It's an awful feeling. That's the first thing we need. But out of love and care, we just try and solve the problem for someone straight away. It's not what we want. When we have the courage to say, I'm not good, we want to be heard. And I hate using Penny as an example of it, but Penny and I learned so much from that experience together that now it's been great for us because when she comes to me or vice versa and something's not good, we're really good at giving the other person a hug and saying, I hear you, and gosh, that must be so hard. I hope you're okay. It's
a dynamic that that I have often experienced in male-female relationships where this is a generalization, but men will want to problem solve.
Yeah.
And women will just want to talk. And sometimes what you said is the actual talking is what made you feel better. So actually saying I'm completely broken felt better, ironically, than when Penny was like, here are all these things that we can do to help try to fix you. And I think also as parents, it's something I really recognise. When our children come to us, when there's someone that you love that is experiencing distress, it's uncomfortable for us if we love them. So the first thing we want to do is hurry them out of that distress or say, oh, no, your skin's not that bad or, oh, look, it'll get better and we try to deny their reality to somehow make ourselves feel better. I don't know.
I think it is. And I mean, gosh, I've noticed myself doing it with the kids all the time. Yesterday on the trampoline, Benji, our 4-year-old, said to me, someone pushed me over at kinder today. And that, as a parent, like that broke my heart. And I could tell he was upset about it. But the first thing I said was, so when that happens, you can say, I don't like it when you do that. And I was straight away saying, this is what you do when that happens, mate. This is what. And then I went, oh, hang on a minute. This is where this advice really originates from. So I was saying, okay, how did it make you feel? And he said, very sad. And I was saying, that would make me sad too. I'd feel so sad if someone came up to me and pushed me over.
Oh, yeah, that's what he needed.
Yeah, and I said, let's have a massive hug. And he said, I don't want one. So he didn't want one, but that's not the point. Like my psychologist asked me the other day, she said, what do you want most for your kids? And I said, for their life to be as easy as possible. And she said, that's not your job. It is not your job to make their life as easy as possible. You're going to have a very stressful existence if that's what you're trying to do, and you should know better. And I said, no, you're right. And she said, your job is to just help them navigate the ups and downs and to validate what they feel. So I'm going, I would feel the same. I would feel exactly the same as someone pushed me over. So it's our go-to, I think. We just want to fix the problem. We got to sit back, let them feel the emotion, tell them the emotion's okay, because that's how we create emotionally intelligent people, really, is to let them, whatever they're feeling, that's okay. It is okay to feel what you're feeling. And I'm here for you. I'm always here for you.
I noticed in a group chat yesterday with some girlfriends. One girlfriend just mentioned a situation that had happened with one of her kids and said that she'd had a sleepless night and she'd been tossing and turning about what a bad mother she was. And everyone just rushed in and went, including me, just went, "You're not a bad mother, you're an amazing mother."
Yeah.
And she told what had happened. We were like, "Oh, that's fine." And we kind of joked about it and we brushed it off and we went, "Oh, it's not a problem." And it wasn't a big deal. And I just watched us all do that. And then I went and messaged her privately and I went, "I really get it. I get why you felt so bad. That must have been an awful feeling."
And that message would have made her opening up completely worthwhile. Like that, honestly, that's what we need to hear. It does.
Yeah, it's like that hurrying people through it. I had a mammogram where something came up and I panicked and my husband was like, "Oh, isn't it great that everything's good?" Like it ended up being fine. But my mum was like, "That must have been so scary." And I was like, yes, it was.
That's what I want to hear.
It was so scary.
Yeah, isn't it? And isn't it amazing the difference? I remember I had a work issue. I spoke to someone about a work issue I was having, and straight away they went into like, "We'll solve this problem, we'll do this," which is great, and that's sort of their job. But I really remember thinking, "Oh, I just wanted them to say, I totally understand why you're feeling that way. I get that," and that I just think we have this like deep need to feel heard, and when we tell someone a problem, that's when we really need to be heard. It comes from a loving place though, like when someone tries to fix a problem for you, but doesn't make us feel good in that moment.
So you told Penny and she thought about it, came up with some plans. Can we go back a bit further? Why do you think you fell apart? Because for me, it seems like I don't know anyone who wasn't broken last year.
Yeah.
So I'm not calling you a basic bitch or anything, but you're not that special falling apart. Why did you think this wasn't just, everyone's falling apart? Why did you think it was something more?
I mean, I'll have to go forward to go back, but when I told Penny, one of the things we came up with is I need to see a psychologist, something I've been telling everyone to do for the last 10 years.
Yes,
and everyone would say to me, "Will you do it?" And I go, "No, I will, but this forced me to do it." And in the process of having therapy, which I never had before, in the first session with her, I said, "Look, I don't have a mental illness, so I reckon we'll probably catch up, I don't know, maybe once a month just to check in." And then I saw her pretty much.
Did she laugh at you? Therapists don't laugh a lot.
No.
But I think they hear that a lot.
Oh, she must have. She was a very kind smile. She said, "Yeah, that's fine." I ended up seeing her pretty much every week for the whole of 2020. And then when she said to me around this time last year, she said, "So I'm going on leave now for 6 weeks." I said, "Oh, cool. So we'll just do this via Zoom." And she said, No, I'm going on leave. And I went, "Yeah. So Zoom's fine." She goes, "No, I'm not talking to anyone." I went, Whoa. Hang on a minute. So who do I talk to? If you're not, do you have anything else? Like, I was like, "No, you can't leave me."
Can I come with you on holiday? Is that possible?
Okay, where are we going? Yeah. Where are we going? But I wrote about this in the book. I recorded all our sessions. I wrote notes. And then the night of my session with her, I'd listen back to it and write more notes. And like I was studying this study of myself, I guess. And I was just learning all this stuff. And I remember thinking, God, on the topic of gratitude, if it wasn't for COVID, I would never learn this stuff, right? If I wasn't broken, I would never be learning this stuff. And there were so many things that I was like, I think the analogy is I keep thinking of like, because I love running, but like if a runner's got a little niggle and you keep running, it just gets worse and worse. You don't see a physio, it gets worse and worse and worse. We're less likely to let that happen. But I had these little things happening in my life that I was just letting getting worse and worse and worse and worse because I wasn't dealing with them.
Like what?
Okay, so one of the really big ones for me was when my sister was 14 and she stopped eating anorexia nervosa and it got really bad, 18, she's in hospital. And I remember so clearly the night I saw, for the second time in my life, I saw my dad cry. I think many of us can remember the time we see our parents cry because it's really unnerving, very unsettling. We just got home from the hospital and I looked across to Dad and he was over the kitchen sink and he was just sobbing. He had tears streaming down his face. I would have been 19 at the time, so I was 19. And it's only I saw him cry when our dog died when I was 10. And I remember at that point thinking, gosh, we're not a happy family anymore. But I learned pretty soon after that I had the ability to make Mum and Dad smile. I could tell them funny stories. I could be really entertaining. And that was my job. Every dinner time, I'd sit down and before a fight broke out over food, I could get in first and tell a funny story or tell a wildly exaggerated anecdote about my day with the sole purpose of making my family happy, not sad about my sister. So I developed this expectation from a young age. It's my job to be really entertaining to make other people happy. And then it spread. Like it wasn't just my family, it was my friendship groups. And then it became schools.
The world.
Then it became do this to everyone. And so I had this expectation that my job is to be a sort
fixer.
That's it, and facilitate a great time wherever I go.
And also to heal people and give them tools to be stronger.
Yeah, so it just grew into, in one sense, it's right, because it led to this incredible life purpose of mine. But then when I wasn't feeling good, like in my late 20s or my early 30s, I'd been single for a long time. No one was in the slightest bit interested. All my friends are married kids. No one was interested in me. I was so single, and mum and dad, I felt like they were thinking, when are you going to settle down and married and kids and all your friends are? And I would get so anxious around mum and dad because I feel like I'd lost the ability to, I just had no good news for them. I had nothing, I couldn't be wildly entertaining, and I would get in the car afterwards and just feel really stressed and worried, and I never knew what it was. Even still to this, not now that I've dealt with it, but even going back 2 years ago, if we went to mum and dad's house and the kids were really hard work and it was exhausting, I was just so stressed that mum and dad weren't having the best time. And it wasn't until my psychologist and I worked out I'd built up this expectation from the age of 19, it was my job. And she said to me, so Hugh, do your parents expect you to do this? And I just went, of course they don't. Of course they don't expect that from me. She said, what do you reckon they expect? And I said, just for me to turn up however I'm feeling. She said, exactly. And just like that, I let go of that expectation to be wildly entertaining to my parents and to spread joy and to, even in the office now, in the studio next to here, a year ago when I'd walk in, all my staff are here, I felt this expectation to really lift the room, but I don't have that anymore. I love just walking and sitting down and just turning up in whatever shape the day finds me.
I feel that too.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's no expectation there. It's a self-imposed expectation. And I just let it go. I just went, this is ridiculous. And I cannot believe how much more energy I've got now for the day when I don't have this thing of like, oh, I'm having lunch with these people. Be really entertaining.
Well, you're not performing.
Yeah, totally.
You're not performing being Hugh. You're actually just being Hugh.
Yeah, exactly right. There were 7 things I learnt through seeing a psychologist that I had to let go of. And expectations just one of them.
Yeah.
But then I thought I can't tell anyone this stuff because it's very personal and it's quite embarrassing, a lot of the stories that come with it. So I just didn't want to tell anyone, not even Penny. But the more these lockdowns went on and the more I was talking to my friends, I realised I wasn't the only person struggling with this stuff. And then I thought, I think everyone needs to hear this stuff. As embarrassing as it is for me and as awkward as these stories, my book is basically my journal that I kept with my psychologist. So it's bloody personal stuff, but not everyone will have these 7 things to let go of, but hopefully people who read it will relate to 1 or 2 of them.
What was the most embarrassing revelation for you? You're covering your face with your hands now.
Yeah, I know.
I should say.
The thing is, the book...
It's about shame, isn't it? Shame and embarrassment are different though.
They are, because we don't see shame in people, but we see embarrassment, right?
Yeah.
That's actually a great point, Mia. That's so poignant for this book. But there are things in the book which are extremely embarrassing, but you saw that on my face, right? Like you saw as soon as the 2 stories I thought of straight away in the book that the day it came out, I went, oh my God, why on earth did I write that? People are reading this about me. Like people know this is so embarrassing. But then there are shameful things and we hide our shame and no one knows what our shame is. And there are shameful things I talked about there, which, I always felt for a long time, like, when my sister, when she was 28 years old, and this is the first chapter of the book, and I actually read it to her 2 nights ago, and it was the most emotional moment of my life, I think. But when my sister was 28 years old, she came back to Australia from Los Angeles and told myself, my brother, my mum and dad that when she was 3 years old, she was sexually assaulted, and she'd never told us that before. It had been unearthed through therapy. She'd forgotten it as well. And I remembered it. I was there when it happened. I was 5 years old. She was 3 years old, about that, or 5 and 2.5. I didn't know what had happened to her, but I remember a man coming into the front garden of my grandparents' house and taking my sister. And I didn't know what had happened because I was too young. But the second she said that, my blood ran cold. And when she told us, and I could have said, Georgia, go on. I remember that. I remember that. You're not making this up. This really happened. I was there with you. But I froze. And I let her flounder through this awful hour where she tried to tell us what happened and I couldn't talk. And the whole time I'm going, come on, just say something. But I couldn't talk. I was so frozen with, I've frozen with what? I don't know. But then.
Trauma.
Yes. That's it, man. Yeah, you're right. Trauma. It was so traumatic to realise that. I was 5, but still I thought maybe I could have stopped this and look what it's done to my sister with her causing an eating disorder. But I didn't say anything. Georgia flew back to Los Angeles. Mum and Dad and Josh, my brother, were really lovely to her, really beautiful, but I just didn't say anything. And it took me another 10 years to say to her, Georgia, I was there. I remember it. You're not making it up. And when I told her that I was there, in her words, she said, I finally feel like I've been set free. You've set me free. You could have done it 10 years ago, but you've set me free. And she wasn't saying this is bad. She said, you obviously weren't ready to process that 10 years ago, but just so you know, you've set me free. Because I've always wondered, am I making this up to make an excuse for my mental illness, or am I crazy? This really happened? And I've always felt a deep shame that I didn't.
That you're a corroborating witness.
Yeah. And I felt that.
But because of your own trauma, you couldn't.
Yeah.
You weren't ready.
And that's what I learned through the process of seeing a therapist. And so this is what happened. So I can give you a really nice example of what happened. So when that whole thing happened, I went, I'm a bad person. I'm such a bad person. What I've learned through this process, step number 1 of dealing with shame, which is in the book, is to remove yourself from the act. So I'm not a bad person. What I did was bad. But we all make mistakes. Like, that's part of being human. So that's the first bit. I'm not a bad person. What I did was bad. The second bit is to empathize with that version of yourself. The 28-year-old Hugh who just froze in terror because he was traumatized. I empathize with him and I forgive him for that, because it's a pretty fucking heavy thing to deal with. And to not be able to just have the words like that, that's okay. Like, I forgive myself for that. And then the third step of dealing with shame is to actually start sharing it. And it's amazing now that I'm sharing it with people. And my sister and I had an hour conversation, a lot of tears, just talking about it. So I did a show in Sydney 3 nights ago, and I spoke to Georgia an hour before I went on stage, and we talked about it. And as we're talking, I'm like, this is such a stupid idea doing this now. I mean, it's never a stupid idea to talk about this, but I shouldn't be doing this now. No coincidence, best show I've ever done in my life. It's the best show I've ever done. I just felt so free of this shame I'd carried for 15 years now.
Like putting down a really heavy suitcase.
Yeah, totally. Exactly what it was. So I can't remember what the question is. Sorry, me, but there was a...
No, we were talking about embarrassment and shame, and it's interesting because you talk about some embarrassing things in the book, like when you met Hamish Blake in a cafe and just froze and couldn't speak, and he was trying to speak to you, and it's a great story. And that's embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not in the grand scheme of things, not that embarrassing, but it was embarrassing at the time. But at the time, you wouldn't have said, I'm a terrible person. You're just saying, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
But shame, it's not I can't believe I did that. It's like I can't believe I am that.
Yes.
Is that what we have to shift?
Exactly. I mean, your example is beautiful. So I'll give another shame story. When I was 9 or 10 years old, I turned up to my first ever basketball training at a new club, and I was a kid. I didn't know anyone, and they all started laughing at me and saying, you look like Bugs Bunny, and they were saying, you're the funniest. And they just teased me at what I looked like for a whole hour, right? And I was devastated. Like, Mum always said, you're really beautiful, darling. And then I went to basketball and I was like, you look so funny. And I went home and I cried in my room. And from that point, I was like, I told myself, you're not a good looking person. And that was a shame that I had for a long time until I kind of, I've sort of moved past. When I was 35, I went on my first ever date with Penny. And I remember when she sat down and looked at her and went, oh my God, like, I need to be funny here because she is way too good looking for me. Way too good looking. So maybe I haven't moved past it. I don't know. But then the Hamish Blake story is like, you're right, because I did something. I was so nervous when I met him because he does know now. We've talked about this, but he has had an enormous influence on me and what I do. Like, his ability to spread joy is so inspirational to me. And I do it on a much smaller scale than he does. And I have discussed this with him, but it's been very inspirational to me. So when I met him, I completely lost the ability to talk or communicate or be normal, and I was just an idiot. And I floundered around. He went to give me, I've told this story on stage, but he went to give me a high five, and I did a fist pump, and then we swapped the last minute. We swapped over and I shook his fist for a bit. It was just awful. It was just like literally shaking his fist, and he was looking at his fist like going, can I get my fist back? Anyway, later that day, I went to a primary school, and it was all the grade 4s, 5s and 6s at a huge primary school in Victoria. There was 600 kids in the hall, and I told them that story. They're on the ground laughing, like in tears.
Yeah.
So I shared it, and all of a sudden I was like, yeah, I'm human. We stuff up. And it's so connecting when we share our imperfections.
Always.
So connecting. And so, yeah, it's a funny one. Like I'm not saying thank God for COVID because it's horrific, but I'm in a much better place emotionally and personally now because of COVID, which is a weird irony. I mean, I say that now not knowing what's around the corner, but still.
I'm Mia Friedman, and you're listening to No Filter with Hugh van Cuylenberg. When your brand is resilience
Yeah.
and you don't feel like you've got any, does that become a business problem as well as an emotional, personal problem in your head?
For a microsecond it was. For a few moments of self-doubt it was. But then I thought, no, I reckon this is the very essence of being resilient, is going, hey, I'm not all right now and I'm going to do some work on this. I'm going to do some work on myself. And I wrote in the book, but I've learned more about resilience in the last 2 years I have in my whole life, and it's because I wasn't okay. So and there's so much strength in vulnerability, but I am just blown away by the DMs I'm getting at the moment from people reading this book saying, it's funny, the first book was like, oh, I've learned so much from gratitude and empathy and mindfulness, but I'm getting like, someone even messaged, there's a story in there about this condition I had in my 20s where my bottom, I was so stressed it would just spasm and cramp at the worst possible moments.
Yeah, a very sore bottom. But like the way you described it, Hugh, it was like someone was like stabbing you in the bottom.
Yeah.
Explain when it happened.
Well, the first time it happened, I was just waking up one morning. I was in my first year as a primary school teacher and I was very stressed because I was being the opposite of vulnerable. I was pretending I was on top of everything. I was pretending I was a great teacher. I was in my first year. I had no idea what I was doing and I was really stressed. And one morning I woke up and it honestly felt like, the analogy in the book was, it's like someone had shoved a cricket stump up my bum. I've never felt pain. I screamed for about 2 minutes and I was like, what the fuck just happened then? And it went away. And then one day it came back when I was teaching. I was in front of a class of schoolgirls. I was at an all-girls school. I dropped to my knees like I'd been shot and I squealed. And I went and saw a doctor and she's like, it's called proctolactophagitis, I think it's called. She said, it's very common with people who are extremely stressed and not dealing with it, basically. And I was like, well, that does not fit what I'm trying to portray right now as a young, laid-back, whatever kind of knockabout bloke.
So what is it? It's every muscle in your anus.
Yes, yep. Just
goes into spasm.
It's spasm and cramping at the exact same time. And it's excruciating. But I thought no one else had it, right? I was like, I'll write in the book because it's a kind of funny story, but it makes a really nice point around the fact that our body knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Like you can't hide it from our body.
Not from your bum.
Not from your bum, no. So, but I have been inundated with messages from people saying,
really?
First of all, thank you. I know it, but thank you for telling me what it is. I've been too scared to see a doctor about it. I'm too embarrassed about it. So thank you. I don't need to see a doctor.
Oh, my God.
I'm like, yeah, you don't need to see a doctor, but you do need to see a psychologist.
Yes.
So many people have been saying, I needed to hear this part, thank you. I didn't know. So I'm not the only one struggling with this stuff. Perfection, my gosh. I don't know if you relate to this one, Mary, but we're so hell-bent on perfection because of what we see on social media, but it just doesn't exist. And we tie ourselves in knots trying to be perfect at everything. But the beauty in life comes from the imperfections. I bring this up to a lot of people messaging and saying, thanks for the reminder, I need to just let go of perfection and just relax a bit and just enjoy the journey. And yeah, I'll fuck up from time to time because I'm a human being. That's part of life. So that's been really powerful as well.
You've subtitled your book, Let Go. It's time for us to let go of shame, expectation, and our addiction to social media. Talk a bit about that addiction to social media and how you think it affects our ability to be resilient.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the front cover for a reason because I think that's one that a lot of us, I couldn't put all 7 on the front cover. And so in the first book, I wrote strategies to stop being addicted to social media, and it worked for me and lots of people. And then the pandemic happened and it didn't work for me anymore. I nearly fell off my chair once when I saw my screen time.
What part of social media were you addicted to?
Instagram is my real poison. That's the thing I just keep going back to. I mean, I don't know if you call WhatsApp stuff, but a lot of time on WhatsApp, Instagram.
Just chatting with friends on various WhatsApp groups. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was in control. I was totally in control. I'd turn on Instagram once or twice a week before the pandemic and I was in a good place with it and rarely on my phone. And my kids never saw me on my phone. And then when the pandemic happened, I was so desperate to connect and I was kidding myself, oh, you're just connecting. This is good for you. I'd start off with a nice text message. 20 minutes later, I'm, elbow deep in Instagram looking at something that I don't care about, already regretting my choice and looking at my kids just staring at me while I'm going, yeah, I'll be with you in a second. And I'm lost. I'm not on anything else deliberately. I'm not on Twitter. I find it to be a very nasty place. Facebook, I'm not on that. But Instagram, and I'm getting all these messages, lovely messages from people. So I'm going, well, it's nice to read this stuff. And I mean, I don't need to tell you.
Nice little dopamine hit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like self-soothing, isn't it? It's just kind of like you sort of let it wash over you, but you never feel good. Because you never finished and then you never put down your phone and feel satisfied in the same way as when you've been reading a book or you've watched an amazing TV show.
Totally.
It doesn't satisfy you ever.
No, and we're sort of crowdsourcing our self-esteem. And
yeah, crowdsourcing our self-esteem. That's interesting. So do you mean in terms of how people react to what we post or looking at other people's stuff and feeling bad about ourselves?
Well, I think what I mean is, so we have a psychological need to feel loved, to feel validated, to feel like we belong. And we go to social media to get those needs met. Like we'll put up a photo of ourselves and we'll watch all the love heart. People literally have to press a love heart button to let us know, so we feel like it's love. It's not real. That's not real love. And we want to be validated. We let people know what we've done really well. I had a lovely photo after a show I did the other night in Sydney, and I was about to post, and I was like, why am I posting this photo? Is it because I want people to see how many people came to my show? What's my actual... And I was like, I sat there for like 10 minutes going, but I'm really proud of this. So that's fine. Cool. No, hang on. No, I want people to like it. So we're getting love and validation. We're trying to get love and validation through Instagram or whatever your poison is, but it doesn't count. That's not real love, and it's not real validation. Real love is doing something that you really love, or being with someone that you really love, or immersing yourself in it. I've got it's all in the book there around how we need to immerse ourselves in activities that we love to get love from that, and to feel validated by doing something we're good at, not by putting up a photo of ourselves doing something really well. Validation comes from working hard at something, getting better at it, not posting a photo of us doing something really well. So I think that's what I mean by crowdsourcing us. We're just putting it out to the mob and going, everyone make me feel better by liking this. And
can I challenge you on that for 1 second?
Yeah, of course.
Because when you have a business, I understand that from a personal point of view. Like for you, showing yourself on the stage and showing the people there, that's your business as well. And so there's a business reason. I'm giving you a justification to post the photo, by the way. Because I struggle with this as well. Sometimes I'm like, why am I posting this? Do I just want people to say you're great? And it's like, yes, of course we all do. Who doesn't want that? But it's also to say, we do have this many listeners, or we've just launched our 45th podcast. That's because you want people to know so that more advertisers will come, so that we can launch more podcasts. You know what I mean? So how do you unscramble that egg when so many of us use Instagram or social for business reasons or branding reasons?
Yeah, so the thing is I can't unscramble that because
damn it,
it's a crazy marketing tool to not use. Like for both of us, what we do, you can't not use it. I went through a stage of going, I'm going to get off Instagram. I'm going to do it. And I thought, no, that is just a ridiculous business decision.
Yeah. You've got books to sell. You've got a podcast to promote. You've got tickets to your shows. You've got clients to get, And
my manager is saying to me, like when we're doing the shows in Sydney and Canberra, she said, there's still tickets to sell. Can you put up a last minute video? And I was like, no, it looks like I don't want to do that. She goes, just put it up. And I did a thing saying, still some tickets left. And we sold like 80 tickets in like 10 minutes. And
exactly.
I'm like, I'm kind of reconciling it by going, I don't understand this totally. And that's okay because I'm imperfect. And I'm aware of the irony of me saying this in your show because you've got so many listeners, so it's almost like I'm doing it anyway. But my publisher sent me a picture the other day, a screen grab of the audiobooks, and my 2 books are number 1 and number 2 at the moment for audiobooks. And I was like, I'm going to post that and say, because 2 reasons. I was so proud, and also it might encourage some people to go, maybe this is a good book, maybe I should get it.
Totally. And also I didn't know that it was available on audiobooks. So that's
exactly.
Right.
And then I'm like, but it looks like I'm showing off. I can't do that. I'm not going to do it. So you'll see in the next, I don't know if I'm going to post this photo or not. I don't know. I've got it.
Bloody post it, because the other thing is that I feel like we're allowed not to be proud. Like it's hard for us to be proud.
Yeah.
Like I'm on the stage. I got through my crack up. I made it out of Melbourne. I'm on a stage. I'm back talking to people.
Yeah.
People came. People bought tickets. I'm really proud because I've worked hard.
Yeah, totally. So I feel like we're quite similar in this, like trying to work through.
It's hard, isn't it? I know.
It is hard. So, but that was, to go all the way back to your question, in this book, what I've written about, and the most powerful thing for me to get off social media or spend much less time on it is to immerse myself in flow state. So the activity, and everyone's got something that puts them into flow. It's a reasonably challenging activity for most people. For you, it's not that hard. It comes to you quite naturally. And when you're doing it, time becomes irrelevant.
What is it for you?
There's 2 things. There's being on stage talking, which is a bit of a weird one because I can't just go and do that anyway. They're like, that's scheduled. But running or I do run 400-meter sprints in athletics. So I'm a sprinter. So whenever I'm training for sprinting, it takes me up 15 minutes of the warm-up, and then all of a sudden time becomes irrelevant. It just goes like that. Everything happens. I'm not thinking. And the thing with flow is we have no critical self-talk. We have no judgment. That all switches off. So we have no negative thoughts about ourselves or the world. It's the only time all 4 feel-good hormones are released at once. It's the only time when we're in flow, according to the research. dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and someone listening right now is just going, I know what it is. What is
Another good one. What if you don't know what puts you into flow? Or what if you don't have anything that puts you into flow?
When I read this chapter to Penny, she challenged me that. She said, I don't know what flow is. And I said, what did you love doing as a teenager or as a kid, or what would you love doing most? Actually, this relates to you, Mia. And you have been so big in her life here, but she said, probably writing. Yeah, writing. I love writing. And she said, I did want to be a writer, but I felt like, if I failed at that, then I'd feel like I wasn't doing anything. So I didn't want to pursue it too much. And she actually wrote an article about her OCD, but then she didn't share it with anyone. She just shared it with me, I think, and that was her family. And then when you guys had her on the podcast, you guys were going to interview her. And then I said, send him your article. And she goes, what if they don't think it's good? I said, just send it to him. And she sent it and it was beautiful. And
that's brilliant.
We haven't done this yet, but we said, we need to make time for you to write because that's flow for you when you're writing, and we haven't actioned it yet, which reminds me we need to do that.
So that's interesting what you said about what was it that you used to love doing when you were younger?
Well, I think for a lot of us, because for me it was playing cricket, but I can't do that anymore. It just hurts to play cricket now. I'm too old. But I think for a lot of people, I've got a whole lot of steps in the book. There's a whole lot of questions you can ask yourself. And if they're yes answers to all the questions, that's probably your flow state. It could be gardening, it could be cooking, it could be, a musical instrument. But it's the stuff that when we get older and we have kids and we're working full time, we go, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to play tennis. That's such a selfish thing to do. If it puts you in a mind state where the rest of the world just disappears and you're fully immersed, what I find is that after I've been running, I don't pick up my phone. Why? Because I've just felt so validated. I feel love. I feel the emotion of love when I'm running. I love for what I'm doing, the community of runners, and then I feel validated because I'm okay at it. I'm doing quite well at it, so I feel validated at that. I don't feel like I need to go on social media to get love, to get validated.
Yeah, you don't need to post photos of yourself running either.
No, I don't post any photos of myself, ironically, because I don't feel like, I'm like, nah, I get so much joy leaving that to my personal. I take a lot of photos and film a lot of stuff, but I don't post it. So, yeah, interesting observation, which I hadn't actually picked up on, but it's very true.
Because it's not about performing the act, it's about experiencing the act, right?
Totally, yeah.
So, Hugh, what have you learned about resilience by having a bit of a crack up in the best possible way? I've had a crack up, it taught me a lot. What have you learned? And would you even call it a crack up?
For me in my life, yeah, I've been so unbelievably lucky. Genetics have blessed me with really good mental health, and I'm just lucky. That's luck. I wrote in the book, I've hit the veritable bullseye because of my dad, a migrant who works so bloody hard. He's just landed me smack bang in the middle of privilege and entitlement, and I've been so lucky. So at age 40, it's the first time I really went, oh, shit, I'm not good. So I don't know, as soon as I admitted I wasn't good, and I think this is what I've learned most about resilience is that, just listen to the warning signs and do something with it. Pay attention to it. For me, I ignored the fact I was getting angry for a couple of months, maybe less than that. But is that even no, that's not the main thing I learned about resilience. The main thing I learned was when I was seeing my psychologist near one of the final sessions we had, I was telling her how at night I've become obsessed with making sure the house is spotless. I'm cleaning till 9:30, 10 o'clock every night. I just want everything to be so clean. And I said to her, no, she said to me, it's kind of like the messier your life is in your mind, the more you want to clean up around you. And I said, yeah, it's a good analogy. And I said, but I'm just sick of things being so messy. Why is everything so messy all of a sudden? I'm 40. I should have sorted this shit out by now. I should be, I see other 40-year-olds, they've got every other else to get it together. I don't have it together. Why is this happening to me right now? And she said, Hugh, I've been working with you for a year now, and if I've learned anything, it's that your life has always been messy. It's what you do when you're in the mess that really counts. And that's what I've learned most about resilience is that life is, we don't get to an end point where we go, good, I've sorted it out and I've arrived and life's going to be good now. It's all things are going to pop up constantly that are messy, and we got to embrace that a little bit more. Life's messy, and it's been extremely messy for the last couple of years, disgustingly so, but it's mess nonetheless, and we got to just, do the work, which sounds very cliched, but for me, it was seeing a psychologist. For someone else, it might be just, and I know not everyone's going to go and see a psychologist off the back of this episode, but maybe it's finding someone you trust and sharing some difficult stuff you've been through. Maybe it's just writing it down. Maybe it's just journaling some stuff you're thinking about. But when life gets messy, it's what you do when you're in the mess that really counts, I guess, is my main takeaway.
Well, I don't want to say I'm glad that you weren't good, but I think good things came out of you not being good.
I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful I wasn't good. I really am. I'm not going to say I'm grateful for COVID. I'm going to say I'm grateful that I wasn't good last year and for parts of this year because it's funny, like relationship with Penny right now is I feel like I just feel so in love with her right now because of what she's helped me get through and the stuff I've learned about, the stuff I've learned about myself, I better apply to her as well. Like she's imperfect. She's full of struggle. We all are. And yeah, I'm grateful that I went through that. I think I called it in the book. There's a song where a lot of the title came from where it says, let go, just jump in. There's beauty in the breakdown.
I love that song.
Oh
From
my
Garden
God.
State. Yeah.
I listened to that song in my 20s so much and never listened to the lyrics. And then when I was driving along the Pacific Highway in Queensland a couple of years ago and it came on and I just started crying because I was like, oh my God, let go, just jump in. There's beauty in the breakdown. Just so good. And that's what it's been for me the last couple of years. So much beauty and probably not a breakdown, but a low point, definitely. And it's led to this, my relationships are so much richer because of it. Absolutely. And Penny's the perfect example of that.
If you want more of Hugh, we'll put a link to that first episode in the show notes. There are so many things in that conversation that are universally applicable. And Hugh also has a podcast. That's how I discovered him, actually. It's called The Imperfects. And he's also got a book called The Resilience Project. And his new book is called Let Go. The best place to find all of this is on his website, and we will put a link to that in the show notes as well. And if you're after something else to get in your ears right now, why not check out our new podcast, Restart? It's hosted by Madeline West, the actor, the mother of 6, the newly single woman who blew up her life. And here's a little taste.
Maybe just about to hook up and you know it's a going thing. How do you initiate sex?
I really feel like getting it on. Just like, I love this conversation. Should we practice a little bit? Or, I'm really enjoying what you're wearing. Can you tell me more about it? And then you can just start playing with maybe their sleeve or, just be like, oh, do you like what I'm wearing? And then you can just slowly take it off.
Our producer is Gia Moylan. The executive producer is Eliza Ratliff. And I'm Mia Friedman. Just by listening to this podcast, you have helped send 350 girls to school today. To help us educate more girls in disadvantaged communities all over the world, that is what we do here at Mamamia. You can become a paid subscriber by following the link in the episode description for unlimited access to all the best content for women, including some special bonus episodes of No Filter.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.